Okay. So horizon line, and then we're going to do 1 point. So let's go ahead and write that at the top here. 1 point, so that you remember. 1 point perspective, you have one vanishing point, right? So one vanishing point, and you can put it anywhere on the horizon line, but it's best if you do it like in the middle for 1 point. It'll be better. So go ahead and put a vanishing point in the middle on your horizon line. And let's label that, so vanishing point. Did you say you do need a pencil?
I got it.
Oh, you got one? Okay. So vanishing point, horizon line, okay? So your vanishing points are always on your horizon line, okay? So in 1 point perspective, you kind of just, it's the easiest one to do. Most people start with this one. You just kind of draw whatever you want, and then you make it look 3D. So we're going to do boxes. Okay, so if I want to draw a box, let's draw a box. So draw a box above the horizon line. Right? So I just drew a box. So, like, didn't have to think about that. Just, like I said, whatever you're going to draw, you draw it. The only thing is, what I tell you to keep in the back of your head, like these rules can change, but this is a good rule to think about. Your horizontal lines should be parallel to your horizon line. So go ahead and draw on a little light line here. Okay, so your horizontal lines, and if you want to write this down, you can, but horizontal lines are parallel. So parallel to the horizon line. Okay, parallel, what does parallel mean? They never intersect, right? Okay, so when you draw your horizontals, think that, and when you draw your verticals, they should be perpendicular. So perpendicular, right, 90 degrees. So verticals are perpendicular to horizon line. Okay, so now we gotta, so like I said, just keep those in the back of your head. You don't use them all the time, but it's a good rule to try to think about. Vanishing point, now to make something look 3D, lines go to vanishing point, okay? So you hit your corners to your vanishing points. Let's go ahead and do that. And if I'm moving a little fast, we will do another one. Yes. So you can, I'm not worried about you erasing lines, so just draw them in, okay? So you go to the vanishing point. Now, you could connect this one if you wanted a see-through box, but I don't want a see-through box, so I'm not going to do that corner. And I also don't want you to have lines that go on forever. So in our scenes, I'm pretty sure you do this assignment, where this would be like a bird's eye view, because the ground would be where the vanishing point is, and then you're like a bird looking up above the buildings. But I'm not going to have you draw it that way. I'm going to have you draw it like a normal perspective, like we would see in space. So you're going to add backs and sides. So remember that little rule? Your horizontals are parallel to the horizon line. Let's do that, okay? So I'm going to add in a back. My verticals are perpendicular. I'm going to add in a side. You don't have to erase your lines. If you want to, you can. I don't make you. But what I suggest, if you are having issues with this, is that you color your sides. So I don't make you in 1 point. But if you want to, like if you're just not seeing what you're doing wrong, maybe I should do something besides highlighter. It just helps you see it. So some people just have a really hard time seeing the 3-dimension. So now you have a 1 point box, right? Okay, so now this is above the horizon line, because we're at the horizon line. Like that's how we see, right? So this isn't bird's eye, because we're standing at the horizon line. So we're seeing the bottom of the box, right? Because we gave it a bottom. So things that are above the horizon line are supposed to be up really high, right? So this is worm's eye. So like if you were a little tiny worm right, on the ground, and you were looking up the big world, you'd see the bottom of everything, right? So that's why it's worm's eye. I'm not making this up. Everyone calls it it. It seems like something I'd make up, right?
I understand.
Like this is a little, we're just going to call this worm's eye.
I've never heard worm's eye.
Okay, so now we're going to draw a box below the horizon line. So if I want to draw a box, what do? What do I draw? It's a box, right? All right, well, let's do it. I promise this will get harder. Okay, so I drew a box, tried to make my horizontals horizontal, verticals perpendicular, right? And then what do I do next? How do I make this look 3D? Go to the vanishing point, exactly. So let's do it. Now I could connect all corners, but I don't want see-through boxes. It makes it more complicated, so I don't encourage you to do that. Don't want something going on forever. Give it tops and sides. So, what did I do wrong? Like, does that look funny?
Yeah, your line.
Yeah, right. My one line is not straight. I see this all the time. Okay, so if your front vertical is straight, make your back vertical straight too. Don't change it. Okay, your top, make it straight, make it match. Okay, if it looks wrong, probably is. Okay, that's the nice thing about perspective. Some people really like it because there's rules. So if it looks like it's funny, probably something wrong. Okay, that's where the coloring can come in handy because you can help see some of your mistakes. Okay, you don't have to do it. But. Okay, so this you see the top of the object, right? Because we're doing normal view, how we would see it. So if you're seeing the top of the object, what eye is it?
Bird's eye.
Bird's eye. Bird's eye, because you're seeing the top. So if you were a bird flying high, you would see the top. Okay, now what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to now make your name, only 4 letters though, because there's not a lot of room.
Drive.
First, last, I don't care. 4 letters of your name. So how do you do that? Okay, because I don't want you to freehand things, you got to use a ruler. This is perspective drawing, which is a linear drawing, which means you use a ruler. So if you're going to draw like a K or something, or an R, you're not just going to sit here and draw in an R and make it look 3D. Nope, don't do that. Okay, it's got to use a ruler. So pretty easy. Let's make this an O. So you can follow along with me for the O, and then you'll do your own thing. So if I want to make this an O, I just make that letter an O. So I made a box O, right? So you're not going to make a circle. That's a box O. So, and then to make that look 3D, connect to your vanishing point. So I encourage you to only connect ones that don't go through it. So that's the only one I could connect, right? Like I wouldn't be able to connect another one because it would go through that box. So if I was to continue that line, it would go, right? I don't want to draw that, but that's what it would do. Now you can make that even more complicated. I could give it a side and a back. This is where the coloring can come in handy because you might start to get confused. And voila, I got an O, right? So if you were to start to draw cities and buildings and complicated things, you can see how you could get pretty complicated. Stairs and windows and doors, the whole deal, right? Okay, but what about something that's more not just a box, like an A or a Y or an R, right? How would you do that? Well, I recommend kind of erasing this before you start. They can get in the way, but start with a box. So what I recommend doing is no matter what, you start with the box, especially if you are not understanding this. Now, personally, would I do this? No, because I understand it just fine. But when you're learning, this is a good advice. So you draw your box, and then kind of freehand in your R. Okay, like what you would want it to be. Like how would this look? Right? Kind of lightly freehand it and then use your ruler to like actually do it. Okay, so just if you keep in mind that everything's going to be a box. Okay, so I'll do a couple letters. Is there another, and you can change that. Like if I didn't like how that looked, I can change that. And if your letters look kind of funny, don't worry about that. I'm not going to take off. The only thing I'm going to take off on is if you did your perspective wrong. Like I'm not going to take off if the R looks a little goofy, like you didn't quite line up that diagonal, you know, like I'm not taking off on that. But so now you want to make it look 3D, you connect to the vanishing point. So like I said, you don't have to follow me along on this. And if there's any letter that you want done, we can do that together.
Yeah, you could do Y and L if you want.
Yeah. So this is a little tricky because notice like this side of my R, I can't draw the side of the R because it's directly under my vanishing point. So that, like, that's my side. You don't see it. So your letters will change. That's the other thing. You can't just copy what I do because depending on where it is under your vanishing point, it's not going to look the same. So I can't draw the side on that. But I can draw backs. I want to give them tops, right? I don't want them going on forever. So I can give it back. Okay, so I have a slant in my R. So I said that rule like, well, use horizontal, vertical, right? That's not horizontal or vertical. But you just make them match. Okay, so if the front is going sideways, the back is going sideways. If the front is straight, the back is straight. So keep in mind those parallel lines. That's why I said parallel. So then they can change. Technically, this is considered a, it's 1 point, so it doesn't really matter. It's considered a vertical because it's just slanted, right? So you're just matching it. So that's where coloring it can help. And then you can see what you did wrong. If it looks right. If it looks right, then you probably didn't do anything wrong. Right? All right, so what letter do you want me to do? A Y? Do you say Y? Okay, so I'm going to draw. So you guys can draw your own here, but I would not normally do a box for a Y. I would just draw my Y. But it is helpful, so then you just kind of draw it in. We're going to freehand it here. Right, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to actually use a ruler. All right, connect to my vanishing point. Okay, so depending on where you draw your letter is it's going to change. Like notice how the vanishing points are starting to, like these lines are rotating around the vanishing point. That's what yours will do. It'll start to get a star. So if you're starting to form a star, you're doing it right. If your lines are not going to the vanishing point and they're going randomly other places, you're not doing it right. You don't have to make them go all under the bottom. You can make them go on top too. I do encourage that you do little sides, like a small top, a small bottom, small sides, and it's just easier too. Otherwise they get really big. All right, so is my Y done? Does that look right?
What about an A and N?
An A and an N?
Yeah.
I can do an A and an N. Ryan. There's something missing on that Y though. You guys see it?
Oh, up
The
Right, exactly. So if it doesn't look right, there's something wrong with it. Yeah. Okay, so I can do an E. An A is harder, so I'll do that first. So what I would normally do is I would not draw in all these lines so dark. So you can think about that too. Like you could draw an A where it is literally a box A. You could do that, you know, where it's a box A. Or you give it slants if you don't like that. And instead you want to do a different kind of A. That's okay too. You know, if instead you want an A like that. Okay. So when I connect to the vanishing point, I don't draw all the way to the vanishing point. So I'll show you what I do. Because it just causes a lot of lines. And when you actually have a drawing, you don't really want to be erasing nonstop. So what I do is I just kind of end it off. So I just do this. Right, like I just kind of like, I drew them to it, but I didn't take the time to go all the way, so I have all these lines I have to erase, you know. And then all those lines can kind of get in the way. Can be confusing. And then in an N, you didn't say an N, you said an E, right, Nathan?
Yeah.
But are you guys getting this? I mean, it's pretty, should be pretty standard. This is the easiest one that they teach. So I would draw a letter, then freehand it. Right, something like that. So some people really like perspective. I've drawn a ton of perspective drawings. I actually won an award for this one, but it looks better when it was first done. It's kind of old now. But I don't really teach it. I actually don't really like it, even though I've done a lot of it. I find that it's not really necessary because it is a good thing to learn. Like, it'll help you, but practically speaking, like, when are you really ever going to do this? You know, like they have a ton of computer programs that just automatically make something look 3D and do the work for you. So as far as like in the actual job market, are you going to do this? Maybe not, but you should have an understanding of it. And if you're going to do something more advanced, you know, like say you're the designer and you need to come up with an idea and the vision, right? Well, yeah, you'd want to know how to do this because you're still going to be doing it by hand. But I just find that it's kind of fading out, so having a sharp pencil is also very important. My pencil's starting to get dull and having some issues. Anyway, this whole thing that you did today is 10 points, and then we'll do another one 10 points, and then you'll have another one. So you'll